Hello everyone. Today I wanted to do a little bit of color mixing and I hope everyone is doing all right. I know these are crazy times and I figured color mixing would be a low stress video for everyone. So I've already started us out. So this is the watercolor palette that I showed you in a prior video, and I've already started mixing some greens here. What I did when I started was I spritzed the colors a little bit with this spray bottle. Here, I'll show you how I did that. So just spritz that real quick. And what that does is it dampens up the watercolor so that you can just essentially, with these colors, you can just touch the watercolor and then get plenty of pigment. So I went ahead and started because I realized that if I go through all of the yellows and all of the blues, that's going to take an awful long time on a video. So I will go through what I've done already. So this was Schminke Lemon Yellow mixed with all of the blues on my palette, including this turquoise, which is not technically a blue, but it's close enough and makes a really beautiful green. And so this is the lemon yellow, and then next to it I put a little tiny swatch of the blue that I mixed it with. This one is Cerulean Blue by Rembrandt. This one is Daniel Smith's Phthalo Blue Red Shade. This one is Schminke Ultramarine Finest. And this is also Schminke Ultramarine Finest mixed with lemon yellow. But the trick here was I added just a touch of Perylene Violet. And what that does is it mutes down the color a little bit, because green and violet are opposite each other on the color wheel. You could actually mix an almost equal amount of green and violet and get a brown or a neutral. That's sort of the general rule for colors opposite each other on the color palette, on the color wheel. But here you can also just sort of mute down a color. So here it's really, really bright. And then if you look here, just by adding just a little bit of Perylene Violet, you get a way more muted green, which gives you basically a whole new range of greens, because you could do that for every single one and mute them down and you'd get a different green shade. That's part of the reason why I have that violet on my palette. Okay, so I'll move on. This one is Daniel Smith's French Ultramarine, and you can see this one is a little bit more, not a little bit more, it's granulating as opposed to this one not being granulating. So you can kind of see here how it's falling into the texture of the paper the pigment is. Same with this. These two are probably the most pronounced. And then this last one is indigo mixed with lemon yellow. I obviously did not mix a lot of indigo in here, otherwise it would be really dark. Okay, so next I will go on to Titanium Yellow Ochre, or Gold Ochre rather, by Schminke. And this color, actually let me label it before we go on. So this is going to be Schminke Titanium Gold Ochre. Okay. So how I'm mixing these is I'm basically just touching it to the color, and then I'm putting the first color down on the page, and then I'm going to mix those same blues with this yellow and see how they're different. Okay, and you can already see it's quite a different quality. So this one is a very transparent yellow, and this one's an opaque yellow. So you're going to get a different quality over here. I'll just put the little yellow. I'm not going to do the blues again, the little swatches of blues, because you have them over here. Okay, so once again, into the yellow, the gold ochre, and then I am going to mix that with the Cerulean Blue by Rembrandt. And see, it's because the gold ochre is opaque, these colors are going to be a little bit more muddy than this with a transparent yellow. So that's another tip. Okay, a little bit more gold ochre, And then we're going to go to the Daniel Smith. Oh, that was a little too much of that. I'm going to have to put some more gold ochre in there. That color is really, really super strong. This is the, and see, it almost looks milky because of the opaque titanium gold ochre. So, as I was saying, the Daniel Smith Phthalo Blue is an incredibly strong pigment, so you really only need a touch. And because I wet them all before I started, it's really, you just really need to touch it in there and you'll get enough. And if I didn't mention, this is Jackson's Arctica number 12 brush that I'm using. It's a synthetic brush, so you can really brush pretty hard with it and not damage the brush at all. It's a pretty good brush. Okay, more gold ochre. And then we're gonna go to the Ultramarine Finest. So see, you can really see the difference here. You're going to get so many more bright greens here, and these are going to be a little bit, I want to say muddy, yeah, because of the opaque quality of this gold ochre, but it's also just going to be a little bit deeper and in some ways some more interesting, people might say. Okay, and that one I probably need to add a little bit more blue. This is the Daniel Smith Ultramarine, the French Ultramarine. And see here, I wouldn't need to mute any of these with the violet because they're already pretty muted. All right, another gold ochre. And then the last blue here on my palette, which is, whoa, I had a little too much of that one again. See, so this one I added just a touch of the indigo, the Daniel Smith indigo, and here I added a little bit more. It's almost like a gray. I'm going to add a little bit more gold ochre. And so all of these mixes really just represent one mix on the spectrum of mixes you can get from any two colors together, because you could water this down and make it a little more transparent, each of these, and you could put more yellow, you could put more blues. So this is just a little snapshot of somewhere in the middle of what greens you can get with all these colors. Okay, so I'm only going to do one more, but I'm actually going to do the Daniel Smith Aussie Red Gold, which isn't a yellow necessarily, but it does give you some really interesting greens. So I'm going to flip this, actually I'm going to pull this out because it's still wet. And I'm going to set that aside and I will show this to you again later once it's dried. Okay. So now we're going to start with, okay, this is again greens. And we're going to go with Daniel Smith Aussie Red Gold. And again, this one is a mixture of a bunch of different colors, or of reds and yellows, I believe. So you're going to get some different variants on our greens. But it still makes some really beautiful greens. So that is the, I'm going to put that here, Sleeping Beauty Turquoise. And I'm going to put a little swatch of the Aussie Red Gold so we know what we're mixing. But yeah, this is what I was surprised by with this beautiful gold color, is that it really makes nice mixes. So this is Cerulean Blue. And these are really good greens for landscapes, nature scenes, etc., because they're a little bit more natural. I think if you're mixing the lemon yellow, it's more like bright springy greens, but if you're sort of dealing with moss or you know, variety of different things, even ocean scenes. You could have some pretty good greens there. Oh, and again, I added too much of that, although that's a really beautiful color. I might just leave it there. That is the Phthalo Blue Red Shade by Daniel Smith. Yeah, that's beautiful. I'm going to leave it. Because again, this is really just a snapshot in the spectrum of, oh, sorry, move that up a little bit so you can see it better. It's just a snapshot in the spectrum of possible greens you can get out of that. Okay. And then we're going to go to Schmincke Ultramarine Finest. Okay. And then the other ultramarine I have on my palette, the Daniel Smith French Ultramarine. And those actually ended up pretty similar, but you've got a little bit more granulation going on here, and you won't really know that until it dries. And then the last one is the Daniel Smith Indigo. So lots of different greens to choose from. Okay. And actually, I am going to do one more. I am going to do the Schmincke Quinacridone Gold. I'm just going to say Quin Gold. We'll do that one and then we'll quit. Because you actually can get a lot of nice greens with burnt sienna and lunar earth. So lunar earth, if you mix too much of a blue, you're actually going to get a gray. And same with burnt sienna. But before you get to that gray, it's going to be a little bit greenish. Okay, so I'm going to say that's the Schmincke Quinacridone Gold. Here we go, and that's a really beautiful transparent color. Sleeping Beauty Turquoise. Okay. Cerulean Blue. That is the Daniel Smith Phthalo Blue in Red Shade. And see, that one's a pretty bright one. Actually, let's try and mute that one so you can actually see how I did that. So, I'm going to go with Quin Gold, the Daniel Smith, and you can see, so I've already gotten a different shade of green just from mixing separately. But let's dull it up a little bit. Let's add a little bit of Perylene Violet. And I don't want to get too much. I think I just put too much on my brush, so I'm going to rinse that off and then just put a touch. And see, you've already got a deeper, slightly more muted green. So I'll put that there. That's the violet. Okay. All right, only a few more colors. Quinacridone Gold. This is the Schmincke Ultramarine Finest. Daniel Smith Ultramarine, French Ultramarine. And see, you're almost getting into, I'm going to add a little more blue there, because without enough blue, It's really almost like a greenish yellow still. Okay, and I'll put the little swatch up there. Okay, and the last one. And then I always get kind of excited. The more I mix, the more my swatches get bigger. Okay. So that's just a taste of some of the greens that you can get out of this palette with these colors. And I'm going to bring back the other sheet. So these are all dried now. And you can see, like with these here, you're getting quite a bit of granulation. With this one, you're getting a lot of granulation. And you're also getting a lot of variation in just these individual samples, or swatches rather. So there's those. And these are not quite dry yet. But you'll see you have a whole, this is all the same blues, just different yellows, and the yellows are not even that different, but you get a lot of variation. Okay, well that's it for now. I might do another swatching video at some point, but I did want to get a start on just showing you some of the beautiful greens that you can get out of this palette. Okay, and everyone take care, and I will see you next time. Feel free to like and or subscribe.